A piercing shriek that could have shattered glass echoed through Willowbrook Heights. Karen Fitzgerald stormed out of her picture-perfect colonial house, her freshly styled hair whipping wildly in the breeze. Her mouth fell open in shock as she took in the sight of what lay in her perfectly landscaped circular driveway. An enormous prefabricated shed sat there like a beached whale, blocking everything, her garage doors, her mailbox, even partially obstructing her front entrance. In the distance, the thunderous hum of a cargo helicopter faded away as it flew over the treetops. As I slowly rolled past her house in my Ford F-150, I couldn't resist offering a casual wave through the window. The expression on her face was worth every penny I spent on that airlift. But let me take a step back and explain how things got here. My name's Marcus Chen, and I'm a software engineer who values peace and quiet above all else. 3 years ago, I bought a small off-grid cabin on the edge of Willowbrook Heights. It technically sat within the HOA's boundaries, but it was far enough from everyone else that I thought I'd avoid the suburban drama. The cabin is nestled on 5 acres of wooded land, accessible only by a private gravel road, one that's been there since the 1950s, according to county records. The road predates the entire subdivision by decades. Life was good until 6 months ago, when Karen Fitzgerald purchased the empty lot next to my road. Karen wasn't just any neighbor, she was the self-appointed queen of the Willowbrook Heights Homeowners Association, and she wore the position like a crown. Almost immediately after moving in, she started harassing me. First, it was small things. My truck was too loud, the gravel from my road was allegedly ruining her grass, even though she hadn't planted any yet, and she claimed the deer that wandered onto her property from mine were somehow my responsibility. I tried being nice, I really did. I even offered to pay for a fence between our properties, but she turned me down, saying she had other plans. Those plans became clear one Friday evening when I returned from a week-long business trip. There, squatting directly across my access road like some kind of gargantuan toad, was a massive prefabricated storage shed. Not beside my road, not near it, but squarely blocking it. The structure was 12 feet wide, 16 feet long, painted a garish shade of HOA-approved beige, and the doors were secured with a shiny new padlock. A laminated sign hung from it, "Private property of K. Fitzgerald, no trespassing." I parked my truck on the main road and walked the quarter-mile to her house, my temper barely in check. Karen answered the door with a smile that could have been described as predatory, wearing her HOA president badge like a sheriff's star. Her voice oozed fake sweetness. "Oh, Marcus," she said, tilting her head in a mock display of confusion. "I'm so sorry, but your road was never approved by the HOA Architectural Committee. I've reviewed the bylaws extensively. All improvements require approval, and since your road doesn't have the necessary permits, I'm afraid it's not a legal access point. My shed is perfectly within my property lines." I took a deep breath, explaining calmly that the road existed before the HOA, that I had a legal easement, and that she was blocking my only access. She responded by handing me a 30-page document about HOA regulations, suggesting I find alternative access through the woods and maybe build a nice walking path, that is, of course, after submitting plans to the Architectural Committee, which met once a month. The next meeting was in 3 weeks. The next morning, I headed to the county courthouse, spending hours digging through property records. Sure enough, the easement was clearly documented, dated 1957, and 100% legal. Armed with this information, I attended the next HOA board meeting. To my dismay, Karen had stacked the board with her friends. There was Margaret Thompson, who ran the local book club, but it was really just a wine and gossip session. Harold Winters, who seemed to agree with everything Karen said, and Patricia Chen, no relation, who spent most of the meeting glaring at me like I'd personally offended her. I presented my case clearly, showing the easement documents, county maps, and aerial photographs from the 60s. The board listened with a mixture of boredom and hostility. When I finished, Karen stood up and gave a speech about maintaining neighborhood standards and preventing property value degradation. The board voted 4-1 against requiring her to move the shed, with only Tom Pearson, the lone voice of reason, voting in my favor. Frustrated, but not defeated, I hired Rebecca Martinez, the best property lawyer in the county. She reviewed my case and practically laughed it off. "This is one of the clearest easement cases I've seen in 20 years, she said. "That shed is absolutely illegal. We can get an injunction to force her to move it, but I think I have a better idea." Rebecca had found something interesting in the county code. Section 47.3 clearly stated that encroaching structures could be removed by non-destructive means at the property owner's expense. I asked her to clarify what counted as non-destructive, and she grinned. "Well, as long as you don't damage the structure and return it to her property, you're within your rights. The code doesn't specify how you move it." That's when I called my old college roommate, Jake Morrison, who ran a heavy lift logistics company. They specialized in moving unusual cargo, like historic buildings or giant air conditioning units on skyscrapers. When I explained the situation, Jake couldn't stop laughing. His crew came out to survey the scene, took measurements, and calculated the lift requirements. The shed was big, but not impossible. Jake quoted me a price that made my wallet wince, but then added, "You know what, for the entertainment value alone, I'll give you the friends and family discount. Plus, I want to see Karen's face when we do this." We scheduled the operation for the following Saturday morning. Jake's team handled all the permits, filed flight plans with the FAA, and even notified local law enforcement. I made sure Rebecca was there with all the documentation, just in case things went south. Saturday came, clear and calm, perfect weather for flying. Jake's crew arrived at 6 a.m. with 2 trucks of equipment. They worked like clockwork, attaching heavy-duty straps to the shed. By 7:30, the unmistakable thrum of rotor blades signaled the arrival of the helicopter, a massive Sikorsky S-64 Skycrane, looking like a mechanical dragonfly against the morning sky. Karen, no doubt alerted by the noise, ran outside in a silk bathrobe and designer slippers. Her face was a mix of rage and disbelief. "What are you doing?" she screamed, her words drowned out by the helicopter's roar. "This is theft. I'm calling 911. Rebecca stepped forward, holding up a folder of documents. She shouted over the helicopter noise, "Ma'am, this is illegal removal of an encroaching structure. Here's the county code, the easement documents, and the permits for this operation. Your shed is being returned to your property as required by law." Karen grabbed the papers, her hands shaking as she skimmed through them. Meanwhile, the helicopter crew began lifting the shed, the large structure rising into the air like something out of a movie. The pilot kept it perfectly level as they soared 50 feet, then 100 feet into the air. Neighbors had gathered, many still in pajamas, recording the spectacle on their phones. The helicopter banked slowly, carrying the shed over to Karen's property. The placement was deliberate. Her garage was blocked, her decorative fountain was hidden, and the shed doors were now facing her living room windows. Even her mailbox was obstructed. The helicopter released the cables, and the shed landed with an eerie silence, a surreal contrast to the chaos that had preceded it. Karen's shriek shattered the quiet. She ran to her driveway, circling the shed like a hornet. "You can't do this. Move it now," she screamed. I calmly informed her that the shed was indeed on her property now, and if she wanted it moved, she was welcome to hire her own helicopter service. The best part? Harold Winters, from the HOA board, showed up. He took one look at the situation, whipped out his phone, and started photographing the shed. "Karen," he said with barely concealed glee, "this shed violates at least 6 HOA regulations. It's blocking your driveway, it's not on an approved foundation, and it's disrupting the visual harmony of the neighborhood." By noon, Officer Daniel Burks arrived, reviewed the documentation, watched the video Jake's crew had recorded, and declared everything legal. "The shed hasn't been damaged," he said. "It's been returned to your property as required by the easement enforcement." The story went viral within hours. The video of the airlift exploded on social media with titles like "Epic Revenge on HOA Karen" and "Helicopter Justice Delivered Cold." News outlets showed up by evening, and Karen made the mistake of doing an interview. She came across as even more entitled and ridiculous than she already had. The HOA board called an emergency meeting that night, and the entire community room was packed. Neighbors stood up one by one to share stories of how Karen had harassed them. When it came time to address the shed incident, Harold Winters presented his findings. For more videos, subscribe my channel.